You are surrounded by people, and yet you have never felt more alone. Someone says something to you, in a meeting, at dinner, in a text, and instantly your nervous system ignites, your chest tightens, your face flushes, your mind races through 17 different responses, each one sharper than the last. You feel the pressure building, you feel the anger rising, and then you react. You defend yourself, you explain. You raise your voice or go silent in that hollow way everyone can feel. You leave the interaction feeling drained, depleted, questioning your own sanity. The person who provoked you moves on. They do not think about it again. They do not lose sleep. They do not question themselves. Why? Because the moment you reacted, you handed them power. Not power over the situation. Power over you. The difference is everything. They have moved on to their day, unbothered. But you are replaying the conversation in your head hours later. You think of the perfect comeback 3 hours too late. You feel the burning shame of submission. You lie awake that night, your nervous system still activated, processing the interaction over and over. This is the fundamental asymmetry. The person who attacked you has forgotten. The person who reacted is haunted. This is not an abstract concept. This is biological. This is neurological. The moment you react, your amygdala hijacks your nervous system. You are no longer thinking. You are surviving. And in that moment of survival mode, you have given them control of your fight or flight response. They pressed the button. Your system responded automatically. This is exactly what they wanted. Not to be right, not to win the argument, to prove they can move you, to prove they have power over your nervous system, and you proved it. Every reaction confirms to them, I can still make this person respond. I still have leverage. I still me. Atter to them. Enough to provoke them. In our last transmission, People feel you before you say a word, we built the architecture of presence. We explored how the world reads your frequency before language, how your energy broadcasts before your words. But we left something incomplete. We left the gap. The gap is this. You can have perfect presence. You can radiate absolute sovereignty. But the moment someone tests that presence, the moment they throw a stone at the still water, most men ripple. They break. They react. And in that reaction, everything they built collapses. The armor cracks. The frequency distorts. The presence shatters. This is where most intelligent men fail. They think the solution to broken presence is better presence, stronger posture, deeper breathing, more controlled expression. They do not realize they are still in the game. They are still reacting. Because reaction itself is the trap, not the specific reaction, the act of reacting, the fact that you moved, the fact that something outside of you caused movement inside of you. Today, we close that gap by understanding something most people never learn. The man who does not react is not weak. He is dangerous. Arthur Schopenhauer was a German philosopher who spent 50 years studying human nature. He was not a kind man. He was not popular. He spent most of his life in solitude. But he understood something that most people never discover until it costs them everything. He understood that the moment you argue, you have already lost. Not the argument, the power. Because arguing is a form of reaction. Arguing is admitting that their words have moved you enough to deserve a response. Schopenhauer observed a dark, unyielding law of human nature. People do not argue to find truth. They argue to establish dominance. Your frustration is their victory, not their defeat. This is the fundamental insight that changes everything. In every argument, every confrontation, every social clash, the actual topic does not matter. The economy does not matter. The political position does not matter. The facts do not matter. What matters is dominance. The person arguing is not trying to convince you. They are trying to prove to everyone watching, and to themselves, that they can make you respond. that your nervous system is responsive to their stimulus, that they have power. And every time you react, you confirm it. You are saying, yes, you matter enough to move me. Yes, you have leverage. Yes, your words have power over my body. Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize-winning psychologist, made a discovery that most people never implement. He divided the mind into two systems. System 1 is fast, emotional, and instinctual. System 2 is slow, deliberate, and logical. Here is the critical insight. Most people live almost entirely in System 1. They feel an emotion. They attach a fast opinion to it. They defend that opinion with their entire being. They call it fact. They call it conviction. They call it belief. But it is just a feeling attached to a story. You, the intelligent person, try to use System M2 on them. You offer nuance. You offer data. You are speaking mathematics to someone operating purely on feeling. You are speaking the language of logic to someone whose brain is not wired to understand it. But here is the cruelest part, and this is where intelligent people become most dangerous to themselves. You are doing all the work. You spend immense mental energy crafting perfect arguments. You stay up at night perfecting your logic. You rehearse your points. You gather evidence. You organize your thoughts into irrefutable sequences. And they spend zero energy. They simply refuse. They do not engage with your logic. They do not even try to understand. They simply dismiss it or double down on their original position. They drain you not by outsmarting you. They drain you by outlasting you. You exhaust yourself trying to convince them. They exhaust you by refusing to be convinced. And since they are expending no energy, they remain fresh while you grow depleted. This is the intelligence trap. And once you see it, you realize you have been playing a game where the other person was never trying to understand. They were only trying to win. They were only trying to prove dominance. They were only testing whether they could move you. The conversation was never about finding truth. It was about establishing hierarchy. And by engaging, by arguing, by defending, you have acknowledged their frame. You have accepted their terms. You have stepped into their arena and agreed to play their game by their rules. Let me show you how this plays out in the real world, because understanding this intellectually is different from seeing it in action. You are in a boardroom. A colleague, someone you know is not as intelligent as you, makes a completely illogical point. Everyone in that room feels the flaw in their logic. Everyone can see it. But your colleague speaks with absolute confidence, unshakable certainty. Your instinct rises. The intelligent part of your brain maps out exactly where their logic fails. You feel the pressure building. You feel the certainty that if you just point out the flaw, everyone will see what you see. Your instinct is to dismantle it, to show everyone in that room how wrong they are. This is the moment. Do not argue. Do not defend. Do not dismantle their logic. Instead, do the opposite. Agree with them, but agree so completely, so violently, that you push their argument into pure absurdity. You do not attack them. You validate them. But you accelerate their logic to its catastrophic conclusion. Schopenhauer called this weaponizing their own momentum. You take their force and redirect it. You use their own power against them. You hand them enough rope and they hang themselves. This is not argument. This is judo. This is taking their weight and using it to throw them. Imagine your colleague says, "Modern art is a complete waste. Anyone can paint a masterpiece. Artists are just scamming people." The weak response is argument. Actually, modern art requires skill and vision. You misunderstand the medium. But you do not say that. You have not attacked them. You have not even disagreed with them. You have completely validated their premise. But you have accelerated it to its logical, catastrophic conclusion. The fool operates on the surface. They never think 3 steps ahead. When you force them to look at the destination of their own thought process, their beat rain short circuits. They have to backpedal. They have to inject nuance. They have to suddenly start arguing against themselves to save face. They realize, Wait, I do not actually want to quit and become a penniless painter. You did not defeat them with superior logic. You defeated them with their own stupidity. But now comes the moment that most people skip. The moment that separates true wisdom from clever tactics. After you deploy this weapon, after you watch them collapse under their own stupidity, you must ask yourself the uncomfortable question, why did I need to do that? Why did I feel compelled to deploy this strategy? Was it because they threatened something true about me? Or was it because they threatened my image of myself? Because there is a massive difference. If someone attacks something real about you, something true, then you might need to defend. But if someone attacks your image, your ego, your identity as the smartest person in the room, then your reaction reveals something about you. Most intelligent people are addicted to being correct. You want the other person to concede. You want moral victory. You want them to look at you and say, "You were right. I was wrong." This addiction is so strong that most intelligent people will sacrifice peace, relationships, and mental clarity just to win an argument. Schopenhauer would ask you, why do you care if a lesser mind acknowledges your brilliance? Why do you need a blind man to compliment your painting? But ask yourself the real question, why does this sting so much when they do not acknowledge it? Why does it matter so deeply that they recognize your intelligence? The answer is uncomfortable, because part of you is still looking for validation from them. When you drop the need to be right in their eyes, something shifts. Not immediately, not dramatically, but slowly, your nervous system begins to reorganize. You stop giving them the remote control to your emotional state. You stop monitoring their reactions to determine your worth. You stop explaining yourself to people incapable of understanding. Let them hold their incorrect beliefs. Let them walk into the world with their flawed maps. It is not your duty to save them. It is your duty to protect yourself from them. And in that shift, you become immune to their provocations. But here is a darker truth that most intelligent people avoid confronting. Stupidity is not a passive trait. Stupidity is highly contagious. If you spend enough time navigating the chaotic, irrational landscape of an emotionally reactive person's mind, you will begin to compromise your own clarity. Cognitive load theory explains this. Your mental bandwidth is strictly limited. When you interact with a highly irrational person, your brain works overtime. You are trying to predict their unpredictable reactions. You are suppressing your own frustration. You are walking on eggshells. Why? You are constantly adjusting your language so they won't take offense. You are monitoring their mood. You are preparing your next words so they will not misunderstand. This sustained cognitive taxation slowly degrades your own decision-making abilities. You become irritable. You make poor choices. You lose your creative edge. You are letting a parasite feed on your intellectual capital. Schopenhauer was notoriously solitary. People called him a misanthrope. They said he hated humanity. But ask yourself, did he hate humanity, or did he simply understand the cost? He was not running from people. He was protecting himself from them. He wrote, "To marry is to have your rights and double your duties." He applied the same harsh mathematics to human interaction. To engage with emotionally reactive people is to have your clarity and double your exhaustion. He was not being cruel. He was being honest. He understood that proximity to irrationality gradually corrupts rationality. Schopenhauer developed what he called the porcupine dilemma. Imagine a cold winter night. Porcupines huddle together for warmth, but their quills prick each other, so they are forced apart. They are trapped between freezing in isolation and bleeding in intimacy. The intelligent person must master this distance. You cannot avoid emotionally reactive people entirely. They are your managers, your colleagues, your neighbors, sometimes your blood family. You cannot wall yourself off completely. But you must establish what I call a psychological quarantine. When forced to interact, you do not bring your authentic self to the table. You bring an avatar. The avatar is not manipulation. The avatar is self-preservation. When you are forced to interact with emotionally reactive people, you bring the avatar. The avatar is polite. The avatar smiles. The avatar speaks in short, agreeable sentences. Interesting perspective. I see what you mean. That is one way to look at it. The avatar gives them nothing to attack. The avatar is a mirror reflecting their own noise back at them, while your actual mind remains protected behind a fortress of detachment. You are physically present but intellectually absent. They think they are having a conversation with you. They think they are winning. Let them. The illusion of victory is the cheapest toy you can give a fool to keep them quiet. But I can feel the guilt rising in you. The societal conditioning is telling you this is manipulative, that it is arrogant to view others this way, that you should be authentic and vulnerable with everyone. Kill that guilt. That guilt is exactly why you have been suffering. You have been treating emotional predators like fragile victims. You have been offering your authenticity to people who will weaponize it against you. An emotionally reactive person who aggressively insists on their own dysfunction is not innocent. They are a hazard. David Robson, a science journalist, documented in his book The Intelligence Trap how institutional stupidity has caused plane crashes, economic collapses, and medical disasters. Smart people following the confident, incorrect herd have killed people. Stupidity is not harmless. Stupidity is dangerous. You do not owe it your vulnerability. You do not owe it your energy. You must view emotional reactivity as a force of nature. You do not argue with a hurricane. You do not try to educate a flood. You board up the windows. You seek high ground. You let the storm exhaust itself. But what happens when the emotionally reactive purrs on has power over you? What happens when they sign your paycheck or hold the key to your promotion? What happens when the system itself rewards the loudest, most emotionally reactive person in the room? This requires an entirely different set of weapons. Because now the risk is real. Now the stakes are existential. Now you cannot simply withdraw and maintain distance. You must stay in proximity to danger. This is where most intelligent people fail. This is where they either blow up their career through honesty, or they compromise themselves into invisibility. The most dangerous animal is not the predator. It is the frightened beast with a crown. When a person of low intellect acquires power, their entire psychological architecture is built on a fault line of deep, unacknowledged insecurity. They sense on a primal level that they are outmatched by the minds around them. They do not process this as a need to learn. They process it as a threat to survival. If you walk into their domain and display your brilliance, you are not proving your worth. You are holding a mirror up to their inadequacy, and a frightened beast with power will shatter the mirror to avoid looking at the reflection. Let me show you how this is done. Look at the Three Kingdoms period in Chinese history. Sima Yi was arguably the most brilliant military strategist of his era, but he found himself serving beneath Cao Shuang, a regent of immense power and staggering foolishness. Cao Shuang was arrogant, impulsive, deeply envious of Sima Yi's intellect. If Sima Yi challenged him, he and his entire bloodline would be executed. If he argued, he would be crushed. So Sima Yi executed the most humiliating and effective strategy in the history of warfare, the submission gambit. He faked illness. When the spies came, Sima Yi acted the part of a dying old man. He dropped his soup, pretended he could not hear, confused names, looked entirely broken. The spy reported back to Cao Shuang. The fool laughed. He felt superior. He felt safe. He lowered his defenses. Months later, while Cao was hunting, Sima Yi dropped the act. He rose from his sickbed, orchestrated a military coup, and seized the entire empire. Cao Shuang lost his head because he believed the illusion. Sima Yi understood something you must learn today. Your intelligence is not a badge you wear on your chest. It is a concealed weapon. When dealing with a frightened beast with power, feed them the exact emotion they are starving for. superiority. Ask them for advice on trivial matters. Let them correct you on minor, irrelevant details. Thank them for their insight with genuine seeming gratitude. You are not submitting. You are anesthetizing their ego. You are injecting their insecurity with a narcotic so heavy they fall asleep at the wheel, leaving you free to operate in the shadows. You trade a momentary scratch to your pride for absolute, unhindered maneuverability. This is not weakness. This is the highest form of strategy. Now comes the darkest part of this entire picture. The reason you keep engaging with emotionally reactive people is not just because you want to be right. It is because you feel sorry for them. You think, if I can just make them see the truth, their life improves. If I can just show them the flaw in their logic, they will not make this terrible mistake. This is the arrogance of empathy. You believe you are the savior of the emotionally reactive. You are playing God with someone else's cognitive limitations. This is a dangerous, bleeding heart philosophy that will drag you to the bottom of the ocean. But ask yourself, have you ever actually saved anyone this way? When you finally stop fighting them, when you drop the rope, when you stop explaining yourself, and when you simply observe the circus around you without participating in it, you experience a profound shift. You realize how much of your identity was wrapped up in being the smartest person in the room. You realize how much you relied on the friction of debating emotionally reactive people to feel alive. When you take that away, you are left with yourself. This is the liberation. This is where real power begins. When you stop reacting, you do not become weak. You become dangerous.